Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Talk Right podcast. My name's Wayne Stinnett. I'm your host. And with me tonight is my co-host and my narrator, Nick Sullivan. Nick,
howdy all.
This
This
why
is
don't you
Nick
do
Sullivan.
the introductions?
Well, we have with us today Scott Jacobi from ACX, Audible's Audiobook Creation Exchange, and author Don Rich, who does not have any audiobooks yet. You see what we're doing here? All right, Wayne, take it away.
Anyway, yeah, we decided to do this actually while Nick and I were at the ACX studios, or Audible studios. I guess it's Audible Studios, an ACX office in New Jersey last December. And it took us this long to get it put together, but we're going to go through the process of just what it takes to produce an audiobook. And we're going to use Don as a guinea pig. So I'm going to turn the mic over to Scott. Scott, introduce yourself and tell us what you do over there at ACX.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Thanks very much for having me on. I'm honored to be here. I've known Nick for quite a while. Wayne, we've gotten to know each other a little bit as we set this up, and I'm super excited to get to know Don a little bit. Nick and I go way back in the audiobook business. I think it's got to be 10 or 11 years ago that he and I first crossed paths at this long defunct audiobook studio that we would both work at, but have maintained our relationship friendly as I've worked at Audible and ACX, and as Nick has grown from an awesome narrator to an awesome narrator and an awesome author. It's just been great to see everything progress, including the audiobook industry. It's really grown and become just quite an incredible thing, especially over the past, 5-6 years especially, but over the last 10, as smartphones proliferated and audiobook production got a little bit cheaper and home studio equipment got cheaper and easier to work with. Audiobooks have really exploded and continue exploding as everybody can walk around and easily listen to them and check them out. So what I do at ACX is I handle marketing and communications, and that puts me in touch with a lot of different authors and actors and publishers and studio pros. A big part of my job is educating those in the audiobook business about what it takes to make a great audiobook, what it takes to do that through ACX. And then once you've done that, some tips and ideas for marketing that audiobook and getting some success and some earnings with that new product you've made from your book. So that's me. I'll stop now. I'll warn you guys, I can go on. I probably talk the most for a person who doesn't get paid for it, like Nick. So feel free to just give me the hook at any time. Just doing a little level setting for this hour we've got in front of us.
All right, keep your finger on the mute button, Jordan.
Well, I'll jump in.
I can attest from my own experience with ACX. Nick and I produced our first audiobook in 2015, and we slowly got the whole series out in audio. And just in the last couple of years, I've seen a really noticeable increase in sales. So audiobooks are definitely taking off. Don, why don't you tell us about your Coastal Adventure series, right?
Yeah, Coastal Adventure series. They're based out of the Eastern Shore of Virginia, and although they do wander a bit, they go to the Bahamas, they go down to the Keys, down to Florida, and had quite a bit of success thanks to your book, from blue collar to no collar, and I'm enjoying doing the writing. And now that I've got 6, next week it'll be 7 books out, and they're moving along pretty well. I figured it was probably a good time to start moving towards Audible books. So Scott, they told me, how would you like to be on the show? I said, oh, that'd be great. What's it about? Well, people that don't have not done any Audible books yet. And I said, oh, well, that's me. I said, oh, it's great to be your first choice. Said, well, no, you weren't my first choice. Well, who was? Well, John Cunningham, but he's doing a book. Oh, then there was Chris Niles. Then there was Nick Harvey. He's doing books, but you were the first one that doesn't have any of them. So I know nothing. They told me, don't look anything up. Just let Scott tell you. Talk me into it. Talk me through it, Scott.
There we go, Scott. What would be Don's first step?
Yeah, well, so that was going to be my question, which was whether it would help if I backed all the way up for Don and for your audience. And, we're sitting here talking about ACX. Is it worth it for me to go through what ACX is and what it does and what it stands for? Like, should we talk about that kind of basic level stuff? Or do you think people know that in general?
I think there might be some people in the audience who don't know.
I didn't. I had to ask. Sorry.
All right. Cool. So ACX stands for the Audiobook Creation Exchange, and it's Audible's independent publishing platform for audiobook creation. So I think you'd probably be familiar with like KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing, for your print and ebooks. Even if you've not published through that, I would hope you'd be familiar with it out there in the audience. So we're the Audible side of the Amazon independent publishing family. So KDP for print and ebooks, Audible for audiobooks. So we're an independent publishing platform crossed with like a dating site. So if you can think of that in terms of like an author or publisher, anybody that owns the audio rights to a book will come to our site and create a profile. They'll talk about their book, themselves, the plot. We'll pull in data from Amazon, ratings, reviews, genre, things like that. And just like a dating site, you build a profile for your book. You're trying to attract a really good narrator and the right narrator for you. On the other side of the equation, narrators, producers, studio pros, the people that are going to produce these audiobooks for you, they'll create a profile for their work. They'll upload a headshot. They'll upload audio samples of previous books they've done. They'll upload, information on awards that they've earned or, places they've been featured or stuff like that. Then the two sides can search for each other. And, if you need somebody who can do an amazing kind of specific accent, and we'll get into that, you can search for that kind of parameter. If you need somebody who knows, how to pronounce esoteric medical terms, because that is somehow involved in your book, maybe it's a medical thriller or something, you can search for that. You can work to get down to the narrator that's right for you, not just a good narrator, but the narrator that's best for your book. And the narrators can search for you as well on the other side. So if you've got a narrator who's got some free time in their schedule or who's looking to line up their next projects, they can peruse the listings. They can search for you. Maybe, a really interesting tropical author book catches their eye and they want to check it out. And, it seems like it's on the right timeline and offering a good rate. And we'll get into all that. Foreshadowing, right? That's what we call it. They can search for authors. Authors can search for narrator producers. The two sides come together. They negotiate all the details with each other. Audible stays out of that. So how you want to pay the narrator, how much you want to pay the narrator, what the timeline is for getting that book produced. That's all worked out directly between the author, publisher, narrator, producer. There's some checks along the way in the process of producing the audiobook that we'll get into, so that the author has the opportunity to make sure that things sound just right, from voices to accents to the tone of a specific scene or a chapter or something like that. There's a checkpoint or two in there where you can listen to the audio and, not have the whole thing produced in a way that doesn't sound right to you. Then once the production is finished, you approve it, you pay the narrator, you send it off to ACX Audible. We take that in, we process it. All the audio is uploaded directly through our website by the producer. We take it in, we process it, we get it up for retail minimally at Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. And then you go off, you market the book, you sell millions upon millions of units, and then you forget you ever learned my name when you're sitting on an island somewhere in the Bahamas.
Okay, question.
Yes.
You say market, then I go off and I market the book. How do I market the book? Does Audible help me market the book?
So this is, I'd like to touch on this a little bit more towards the end of our discussion, because it's sort of like as we go through the process, I'll touch on little portions where marketing comes into play. But to answer your question, with the business model of ACX, we pay a very nice royalty rate. We pay one of the highest royalty rates in the business. And as the trade-off for that, it is a little more work on the author's end to start off that marketing, to start off some of that self-promotion, whether it's getting in touch with your fans who might want to listen to your audio edition, or whether it's finding listeners who already love audiobooks but don't yet know about your book. The initial onus to do that first marketing is generally on the author, the rights holder. With support from us, we offer things like promotional codes to give away free copies. We have a bounty program where we reward you with payments for, it's like a referral program for getting new Audible members in. So we try to do things to help get you started. And then once you sort of put yourself on the map a little bit, you can let us know, and then we'll take a look and we'll see if there's an appropriate way to help support some of that marketing that you're doing and put some of Audible's muscle behind it.
On average, how many print buyers or download buyers or KU buyers become audiobook buyers as well?
You know, so there's not really a strict equation for that. You know, it's going to differ from every book to book, genre to genre. You know, sell-through is a thing that gets affected by a lot of different aspects, and I don't have one good answer for you. But, you know, what I can tell you is that's one way to look at it. The other way to look at it, again, like I said, is not just fans of your books who might buy a new edition, but there's an entire, if you're not in audio yet, untapped market of listeners that may like to enjoy your product that have never bought the book. So I'm sorry I can't give you like a hard number answer, but you know, that group is going to be part of your overall potential audience in the audio space.
I can pop in with an observation on that because of the Whispersync, and I'll let you explain what Whispersync is in a moment. As many of our viewers will know, BookBub is the great deity over us all who will provide massive sales. And when a book is Whispersynced, the Kindle is linked to the audio. I have found that when you get a BookBub, if you have an audiobook Whispersynced with it, your audiobook sales are going to go way up during the period that the BookBub is running.
As a percentage, I can tell you that for myself, at least, audio is probably 10% of my gross. Paperback's about 5%. So I sell at least twice as much audio that I do paperback. And
audio is about 20% for me, probably because I'm a narrator, and so I've got some traction there.
Yeah.
That's really interesting to know.
Can you explain Whispersync real quick?
Yeah, sure. Whispersync, there's two aspects to it, and it's this pretty cool like future technology thing from Amazon that I really like. So essentially, if there's an ebook edition and there's an audio edition of that same book, you can have those books Whispersynced. Audible may automatically do that for you. You can also request it if not. But essentially, if somebody already owns the ebook, they can get the audiobook at a discounted rate. And then the way the technology works, two cool things. One, you can read the book on your e-reader while listening to the audio, which it's been shown helps with retention of the story, especially if it's like a learning type book or something you're trying to memorize, really helps with retention, helps language learners, like, you know, kids or people trying to learn another language. And that part is really cool. The other part that I think is really cool is the switching between the ebook and the audiobook. And what Whispersync allows for is if I start my day and you know, I wake up and I get in my car and I listen to a chapter or two of an audiobook on my commute to work. This is obviously happening not today as I'm commuting to work. This is happening sometime in the hopefully near future, right? But if I listen on my commute and I listen to a couple chapters and, you know, I get to work, I stop at my lunch break at work, I decide to pick up my e-reader and read more of that book, that knows where I've left off. And so I seamlessly am there to read the book from where I left off with the audio, and then vice versa. Once I get in my car to go back home, the audiobook will know where the text-based edition left off. Now, cool, great. That's a really cool, fun thing. It makes it easier for listeners and readers. Why do I care, right? it really increases the speed that people are consuming these books, and therefore the speed at which they're purchasing next in series, the speed at which they're jumping to another one of your titles. It just allows people to get more of that listening / reading in. I can't create more hours in the day, but Amazon can sort of help find ways to help people just get that great content from people like you faster, and then on to the next.
Awesome.
And here's a thought for you, Don. If you're out on a sailboat or powerboat, it doesn't matter, and you're cruising along the coast, you've got a lot of time on your hands.
Aha. That'd be a great
boaters
market.
are a big target audience.
Mm-hmm. Great market.
All right.
Listening to a book about a boat while on a boat, that's just...
Yeah.
I've got an awful lot of sport fishing crews and owners that read my books.
Think about this. I Am Gypsy by Cap Daniels.
Yeah.
A book from a boat's point of view, listened to on a boat.
narrated by a boat.
I haven't read that one. It's on my list to read, though. It sounds cool.
Oh, it's a really great book, and it's a great. No, he doesn't have that in audio yet, does he?
Yeah, no, he does. He does.
Oh, he does.
Yeah. I know, because I said, hey, I'll do that for the same charity that your book is. I had some time. He's like, I already thought of that. It's already done. I'm like, oh. So Scott, what would let's say Don's like, all right, let's see if we can find a voice for this series.
Yep.
What would be the first step?
So the first step would be to create an account at ACX and to claim your book. That's what we call it. There's absolutely no fee to use ACX, and the only requirement is that your book is available for sale on Amazon. It doesn't have to be published through KDP, Kindle Direct Publishing. Obviously, we're happy if you do, but if that book is available for sale on Amazon, you can bring it over to ACX, claim it as yours. Like I said, we'll pull over the metadata. You'll fill out a little bit of the profile information to talk about the book itself, the plot, what kind of voice you're looking for, and some of your audiobook specific marketing, which I know, Don, you're curious about, and which we'll get into during this hour. So after creating an account and creating a profile for your book, what would I do first? So one of the first things I would do, Don, are you currently an audiobook listener? Do you feel like you know a little bit about the ins and outs of a good performance and a well-produced book and all that, how it's laid out and everything?
I signed up for it as soon as I found out I was going to do this. So I've been listening for laugh, Nick. I've been listening for a couple of months.
Oh, cool. Perfect. Yeah, that's always my first piece of advice is you always look, since you're an entrepreneur, you're a self-starter, you're your own business, right? And so if you're going to invest your time and money and energy into getting an audiobook done, you want to be an expert at the milieu, if you will. So one of my first pieces of advice is always go to Audible. Every audiobook at Audible has a free streaming 3 to 5 minute sample that you can listen to. Listen to the samples on a bunch of books that are similar to yours, books that are nothing like yours, and read the reviews on the books and start to see what listeners like and don't. And I don't just mean pay attention to one review. Like if one person says, I hated this narrator's voice, all right, one person's opinion is one person's opinion. But if you see consistent things popping up again and again, like this narrator read too fast, or was consistently I'm from Russia and I can't believe this narrator consistently mispronounced this word, blah 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 blah. You'll start to see themes in what people really look for and listen for, and what people are really turned off by in an audiobook production. So it sounds like you're some of the way there, which is awesome. Way to go. I hope you've started to get a sense of like what turns you on and what turns you off when it comes to listening to an audiobook.
I have, and I've enjoyed listening to some of my friends' books, and also some of the books that I've read and gone back and listened to.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So once you familiarized yourself with audio in general, some of the fun part starts, which is getting to pick the narrator, which people always tell me is a super fun, maybe a little stressful because you want to get just the right voice, but a super fun part of the process. And this is where some very early marketing can come in. I don't know, Don, how active you are with your fan base, if you interact with them a lot on social media, or if you have a newsletter or any other kind of like points of contact with your fans. But as soon as you definitively decide to do an audiobook, I would announce it to your fans. I would tell them right away. Start building that excitement. You can start to get a sense of your audience size by ask your audience, like, how many of you are audiobook listeners? Has anybody ever tried Audible? Do you want to hear an audiobook from me? Who do you think should play X, Y, and Z characters? Like what movie star do you think my main character would be? Blah, 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 blah. You're probably not going to get, like Brad Pitt to play the lead male voice in your book, but if you get a theme where, somebody's consistently calling out a certain actor, you could put that in your title profile and say, the main character should remind people of this actor or this role in a movie or something like that. That's good direction for a narrator, unless Nick wants to tell me, I don't want to hear about that stuff.
Actually, Nick was the 63rd person to audition for my first audiobook.
Oh, yeah?
I was down to, at 62, I was just about to cut off auditions. I had it narrowed down to 10, and they were all really, really good. But none of them were quite exactly right. And then Nick sent me his audition tape, and I listened to it. And as soon as he hit the first line with one of my minor characters, Rusty Thurman, I said, boom, this is it. I closed the audition, made him an offer. And
I don't know this Rusty Thurman character, but I've known Nick a long time. And if I had to think of a narrator to voice somebody named Rusty Thurman, man, Nick is your dude.
So you made an offer. You made Nick an offer. So there's some play in the cost of this.
Yeah, there's several tiers of producers, price tiers. And Nick usually works in the I'd call it the medium range, right, Nick? And
yeah, I mean, maybe just past the medium, but I don't go stratosphere.
I couldn't quite afford Nick, so I made him an offer. I said, "Look, if you do this first one, at that time I had 7 or 8 already. If you do this first one on the cheap, it's really short. Then I'll bump it up on the second one and bump it up some more on the third, and we'll get you up to where you're at by the fourth." And he agreed to it, and we've been together ever since. He even did my nonfiction.
And that's really cool, and that's where some of that like negotiation comes in, which I honestly think is one of the coolest parts of ACX. Where, I mean, like Wayne said, he didn't think he could afford Nick at first, but we don't have like locked in rates. We don't take anything off the top. It's all between the narrator and the author, and whatever kind of deals you can work out with your narrator, is cool with us as long as it's legal, as long as it's not like blood money or something. I guess I wouldn't know what it was. But.
I will interject just because I have to stand up for the narrator side too.
Yeah.
There are what I would call career professional narrators who belong to SAG-AFTRA and who get their health and retirement. So there is a minimum that we have to get in order to get a health credit. So if we're offered a book that they just insist on paying us less than that, a lot of the professionals are simply not going to do it because actually with the COVID and everything, what we have to make every year just went up by 40%. So it makes it difficult to do royalty share and anything under. But Wayne's first, let's give it a shot. I actually have made that a practice now. I'll go as low as I can for first in series for people that are starting out, just to see that it gets traction, with the understanding that it may not stay that way. I thought that was a reasonable deal. And actually, one of the things we worked out was I said, well, I tell you what, if you'll help me out with the QC and you'll listen to it yourself for misreads, and also if you want to change anything, and that actually has worked out extremely well.
It has worked out phenomenally well. Nick and I have gotten so close over the years, and we constantly doing things for each other. And this show is just one more of. He's actually the final critical eye on the written book. He'll find. I mean, the best way to edit a book is to read it out loud. And when he finds that last mistake that somebody made, that I made that nobody caught, then he lets me know, or he tells me, hey, this could read better. It could sound better if you change this. And if it sounds better, it reads better. So, I mean, he gives me a list, a couple of pages usually, and it's worth its weight in gold.
Wow.
Two things I wanted to jump in and clarify quickly. One, Nick's absolutely right. For SAG-AFTRA members, there is a union minimum that they need to meet to meet their requirements, as Nick mentioned. And we absolutely love the union, and we love when union actors get jobs on our site. Having said that, we do allow for non-union actors as well. So I just want everybody to be aware that not every actor will have that minimum. If you can use a union actor, that's awesome. But like I said, there are other opportunities, and so don't feel like literally locked into that minimum, because we're all about creative ways of like Nick and Wayne getting those books made. The other thing I wanted to mention based on what Wayne said was I think it's so cool what you said. Reading a book out loud is like the best way to edit it, the best way to catch like little inconsistencies and things like that. And I want to protect the narrators here, and I think Nick will back me up on this, is that it's totally fine to catch a few mistakes or typos or something like that, inconsistencies in a final manuscript. I'm sure that happens to everybody. But your manuscript really does need to be final before you bring it to ACX. Your narrator is not your editor. Your narrator is not your proofreader. They can certainly be like a last line of defense, but I want to make sure everybody knows that, like, to respect the narrator's time and effort and craft, it's really got to be that final manuscript.
Yes, this is true. There was one company, I won't name, that tried to make it part of the narrator's job to do that, and there was a massive pushback. I do it because it's not that difficult if there aren't that many to just note them. I did have one recently that I recorded that had so many, this needs to be further looked at. It is not something we're supposed to do, but sometimes we might, if we like you. But yes, Scott's absolutely right. Don't use it. Consider that the narrator may catch those 2 or 3 things that all your beta readers and your professional editor and your professional proofreader that you paid might have missed. But if you haven't done those things, don't expect the narrator to spend any time on it.
Yeah, like the plural of bateau.
Yeah.
Who
when
knew?
I first started
the plural
this, I
of
was
bateau
bugging the
is
heck out
bateau.
of
You just add an
Wayne.
X.
I was bugging the heck out of Wayne, and he said, don't ever put a book out without having it professionally proofread first. And as soon as you can afford it, get it edited. And as soon as you can afford it, or as soon as you can, start putting together your beta readers. And I've stuck with that.
The more people who have eyes on the manuscript before it goes to an editor or before it goes to a narrator, the better it's going to be and the easier it's going to be for the narrator.
Now, for tropical authors, should you be using beta fish instead of beta narrators? I can't believe it's nearly halfway through the episode, and that was my first terrible aquatic pun.
I like it. I'm going to change the name of beta readers to beta fish.
One quick question. You were talking about reaching out to your fans as an audiobook comes into the realm of possibility. I don't know the answer to this, but have you ever heard, Scott, of an author getting it down to 2 or 3 and then asking the fans who they would pick between those 3?
Yeah, I've definitely heard of that. It can be a super fun way to engage your audience and to make them feel like they're really involved in the creation process. That's a super fun idea. The only caveat I would give you is, again, out of respect for the narrator, because most auditions are not happening in public.
They can't use the MP3 of the audition, right?
Well, no, just get the narrator's permission.
Okay.
It's not really, I mean, look, nobody's going to want to go to court over this stuff. I'm not talking about who owns the right to what. I'm just talking about be a good human being, be a good creative partner. if you're going to make something public, just ask your narrator, hey, is this okay? And then tell your fans, because social media can be the Wild West, tell your fans, only nice comments, or, just plus one the one you like. Don't bother commenting on why you don't like the ones you don't like.
That is very, very good advice.
Yeah.
I didn't do that. I posted
It was
a
a
couple
dicey
on
question,
Facebook.
but I wanted the answer.
I posted a couple of samples on Facebook, and one of the narrators was very upset about it. And I apologize. I didn't know that I should have asked for permission, but it all worked out in the end, though.
Well, now you know.
Well, let's keep an eye on the clock here. So let's say he has found the perfect reader.
Yes.
Although, wait, before we do that, real quick, the audition piece.
Yes.
When you're picking something you want to hear people read, what are the things you should think about when you pick? I'm imagining you shouldn't just go, I don't know, page 1, first 2 pages. Here you go. You should probably just find something specific in the book, right?
Have them read like the publisher's information page with like the copyright date and all that. No. So one of the cool parts about ACX is that you'll upload your own audition script, right? So it's not like you'll just get a demo or a read of some other book and you'll have to judge like based on that. You'll upload your own audition script, and what we say is that it should be, it should be a couple of pages, 3-4 pages at most, maybe. Definitely not an entire chapter. Please don't expect like a narrator, producer to take, hours out of their day to do a whole chapter for you on spec without any knowledge whether they'll get cast. But select a scene from your book that you feel is representative of most of what goes on. And you could even combine 2 small short scenes if you wanted. But I would say that make sure the audition script that you choose definitely features the main character / main characters, so that you can hear how they'll be voiced. If there's action in your book, it should contain some of the action as well as some explanatory text as well as some dialogue. It really, pick a scene that's going to have a little bit of everything that your book has, leaning on the biggest themes within that book.
Yeah,
And how long? What's the max
ahead.
length you think?
I mean, again, so help me out, Nick. Really, an audition shouldn't need to be more than like 5-ish minutes of finished audio.
That's
what's that?
Exactly right.
Couple
I've
of
done
pages.
some huge ones, and I'll just stop and go, I'm sorry, I got other work to do, but I hope that was enough. And
right. But
5
so
minutes is about right.
Just to help authors, pages to minutes, that's going to be 2-3 pages in 5 minutes, something like that. Depending, of course, on the text.
Most action adventure font type space formatting comes out to about 2 minutes to 2.2 minutes
Per page. Gotcha. So yeah, a couple of pages.
And to clarify one thing, you mentioned producer and you mentioned narrator. Are they the same person?
Thank you for asking. Also, to clarify one thing, have you been wearing that hat this entire time?
No, I didn't. I had to turn the lights on because the ambient light was dying on me, and then it was like I was getting white face.
All right. Okay, so I'm going to cover 2 things here so we can keep this moving along. Number 1, what's the difference between a narrator and a producer? And then we're going to get into different payment types on ACX, because that's always one of the biggest questions. How do I pay my narrator / producer? So on ACX, the narrator producer is responsible for delivering a fully finished retail-ready product. So what that means is the book has been researched, recorded, edited, QC'd, mixed, and mastered, and uploaded to ACX are MP3 files of a fully retail-ready audiobook product. Traditionally, in the audiobook industry, before the rise of home studios and ACX and all this stuff, a narrator's job was just to walk into a studio. I'm gonna make Nick upset. All the narrator does is walk into the studio, read, and walk out, right? But essentially, the narrator's job was just the recording, right? The research and the performance. And then they would hand it off to the people at that studio to do the post-production work. On ACX, because the narrator is responsible for the full production of the audiobook, we call them the producer because it's a title that really illustrates how much work they're doing. Your narrator may not be your producer on ACX. As an author, you are making a one-to-one contract with the person that's going to deliver your fully produced book. You will get to choose that narrator, but you might end up finding like a studio or somebody who like works with a bunch of different narrators who can kind of provide you access to a selection of narrators. In that case, the person you're interacting with would be the producer, helming the project, putting all the pieces together, and the narrator would then still be the person that is just reading it. But by and large on ACX, your narrator is your producer. They're doing the whole finished product. They're delivering it all.
There is one other slot, which is the narrators that will be your producer, but who will take a portion of what you're paying them, and they will subcontract out and get an editor, because some of them know, I don't do this as well as I should, and they will get someone else in on it. But they'll generally handle that for you.
Well, what's interesting is at the end of the day, the author kind of doesn't really know and may not care like who the producer is subcontracting to, right? Like the producer has the responsibility to deliver a retail ready top level product. And if they do that themselves, or if they hire an editor to do it, as long as the finished product is up to snuff, good to go.
So do you have standard boilerplate contracts, or how does that work?
Yeah. So when you agree on ACX with a narrator producer, I'm going to start saying producer from now on since we all know what it is. That agreement on ACX where both sides click accept, that's a legally binding contract. We also offer third-party contracts to where if I'm a producer and I want to hire somebody out to edit my audiobook, we give them a boilerplate contract to go hire an editor, so that editor is less likely to flake out on them or do a poor job or something like that, affecting your final product.
I see. So but that has nothing to do with me. That's strictly between those two.
Right, exactly. And that's kind of the cool part, is you're just hiring somebody who will deliver to you the full production, and it's their job to worry about how it goes from start to finish.
And ACX's take is strictly from the back end, from the sale of the product.
Correct, yeah. And so since you asked, or since you motioned towards it, let's get into the payment breakdown, both for producers and for rights holders. And just to be clear, when I say rights holder, a rights holder is anybody that owns the audio rights, author, publisher, agent, estate, whoever that might be. So there are 2.5, column 3 ways of paying for your audiobook on ACX. Number one is the traditional model within the audiobook industry, which is per finished hour payment. Per finished hour means that if you've got, 90,000 word book, 100,000 word book, that's going to turn roughly into a 9-hour, 10-hour audiobook, depending on the genre, the pace of the narrator, et cetera, et cetera. Average audiobook is about 9-10 hours in length. If you agree to pay your narrator, let's just say $250 per finished hour, which I want to say is the union minimum. Nick, keep me honest here.
It is.
Oh, great. So if you agree to pay $250 per finished hour and the audiobook is 10 hours long, guess what? You owe that producer $2,500. Now, it's going to take that producer somewhere between, let's call it 5 hours of work to produce one finished hour of audio. By the time they record it, they either edit and master it themselves or they get it done. Call it roughly 5 hours. So you're paying based on the final running time, and then it is incumbent on the narrator to have really good quality and processes and skills to shorten their hours to finished hours ratio so that they make a good living. I like when Nick nods along because it tells me I'm getting it right. So that's the traditional model. You don't split any royalties with the narrator. You split royalties with Audible. You get 40% royalties on all sales from that audiobook, and you don't split any of it with the narrator. You pay the narrator when the production is complete. We don't put the audiobook on sale until you confirm that you've paid and the narrator confirms they've received the payment. So ideally, nobody gets up in arms because they didn't get paid or something.
Is there any kind of a rating scale or a star rating for narrator or producers?
So we don't have a star rating or review system for narrators or producers, but we do have a tier that I believe my man Nick is part of, and it's called Audible Approved Producers. and there's a little badge next to their name on their profile with like a check mark, and that indicates that they are the premium, elite, platinum tier of ACX producers who have shown that they have a history in the business. They deliver their stuff on time. It meets all of our audio requirements. It doesn't have to get like sent back because chapters were out of order or something like that. And it just, sort of, and you can filter for that on our search. So you could say, I only want to see Audible approved narrators. As you might expect, you might have to pay those narrators a little bit more, but you get what you pay for.
And 24 audiobooks, Nick and I have had 0 quality issues. So you definitely get what you pay for.
That's not true. We did have one come back because when I consolidated something, the tiny little chapter 2 was cut off. So we were missing. So out of all of those 24, we had one.
I didn't know that. You could have kept that from me, and I'd still be giving you a 100% rating. Now you're just 99.9, Nick.
Does ACX review the final product before they sell it?
So we do, but not a full end-to-end listen. And it's funny because Nick, I think it was Nick that mentioned before, he said, I'll drop my rate if you'll do the QC pass. I honestly think all authors should be doing a full end-to-end listen of their final product no matter what, because that book is your baby and you know it better than anybody else. And, don't put a product out at market if you don't know that it's exactly what you want it to be. So what we do is we do a technical check to make sure that the book meets all of our audio requirements, and they're too arcane to get into here, but we do list them on the site. Producers are well aware of them. To make sure it meets our audio requirements, to make sure that all the files are there, that they're all in the right order, and that the overall sound quality is going to stand shoulder to shoulder with any other book on Audible.
How long are the audio rights good for? How long do they last?
The contract, the distribution terms with Audible ACX, it's a 7-year distribution term. And you have the option of both exclusive and non-exclusive distribution. Both of them get you distributed to Audible, Amazon, and iTunes. But if you choose non-exclusive, you can then distribute it wherever else you may like. Sell it through your own website, whatever makes you happy. Sell it out of the back of your boat on CD.
No, I'm talking about overall. How many years are those good for? Not just with Audible, but my rights, like a book's right goes for.
Oh, I see. So that would really depend on either your contract with your publisher. So if somebody else is publishing your books, that's probably listed in your contract, who owns the audio rights and what the terms are. But if you're self-published, like if you went through KDP or another self-publisher, you almost certainly own your audio rights. And I'm sorry, I'm not an expert in copyright law, but whatever the length of the copyright is, I would think you would own your audio rights.
In perpetuity.
And the 7-year term, that's just the deal you have with Audible. If
Yes.
you pay a producer to produce the audio for you, after 7 years, they don't get to come back and go, now you got to pay me again to keep it. No. It's once you've done it, it is yours.
Gotcha.
And so, okay, that was option number 1, pay for production. Option number 2 is the royalty share model, where you forego an upfront payment. We like to think of it as a deferred payment to your narrator. And so the narrator is essentially taking it on spec, making a little bit of a gamble, knowing they're not going to get paid up front. And you then agree to split your royalties for every sale with the narrator producer. I said I was just going to say producer. With the producer, 50-50 for your portion. So that means if you're getting 40% from Audible, you keep 20, the narrator keeps 20. That is only available for exclusive distribution with us because we pay the narrator on behalf of the author. And so if authors are out there distributing their books elsewhere, we have no way of making sure that we're capturing those sales and that somebody is splitting them off to the narrator. So if you're going to do royalty share, it has to be exclusive. The exclusive rate is 40% either way. And if you choose to go non-exclusive on a pay for production, that royalty rate is 25%.
Is there a buyout clause in that down the way if you decide, I don't want to do this anymore. I want to pay a a fee and then get out of it and own the whole thing myself, still with Audible, but then I've bought the producer out of it.
I don't. There's not like a buyout clause. There are clauses to protect both sides if something doesn't go quite right in the production. If a rare instance comes up where, like, in the middle of production, the two parties just can't agree, and then the author might need to buy out the narrator if they've already put some work into it. But no, generally those terms are the terms. I'll be honest, you have a little wiggle room with Audible where if you go exclusive and you don't feel it's working out for you, or vice versa, if you go non-exclusive and you realize you'd rather be exclusive, as a courtesy, we will honor those requests as long as it's been, I want to say, a year since the audiobook went on sale. We'll let you change exclusivity, but you can't buy out the narrator. Call me 95% on that. I'm going to check our contracts and follow up with you, but I believe that's true.
Okay, and is that for the 7 years or in perpetuity?
That's for the 7 years.
Yeah.
All of our terms are for 7 years, and then you can choose to renew those terms on a yearly basis after the 7th year, or not.
But I think what he's asking is, on year 8, he still has to keep paying to the narrator?
Correct.
Oh, I'm so sorry. I misunderstood your question. I thought you were saying in year 4, can I change midstream and buy out the narrator? I apologize.
He probably wants to know that too.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah, but also, if you agree to royalty share and the narrator basically works for potentially nothing, I would think they wouldn't want after 7 years for it to just stop. And my understanding is that royalty share is royalty share. If it continue, if you re-up with sale on Audible, the narrator would continue to make half of the royalties. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct. I don't. You could, after 7 years, you could take it down from Audible, take it somewhere else if you wanted. But sorry, you caught me in something that involves money and so I don't want to give you a 100% answer because I'm honestly not entirely sure. So you caught me. You found something I don't know.
I didn't mean to.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
It's like
I'm in a video game.
Gotcha, I swear.
So rather than give a definitive answer on a podcast that's going to live forever and that I assume millions of people are going to listen to, I would love to look into that, get the right answer to Nick and Wayne, and then they can follow up with their audience and make sure they have the right info.
Sounds good. Explain royalty plus.
Yes. So thanks, Nick. That was some great hosting there. Good segue. So royalty share plus is our hybrid model where it's a royalty share. So you're splitting the royalties on the back end with the narrator, but you can also add in a per finished hour payment so that minimally the narrator can meet their own production costs and know that, again, minimally they're breaking even. It's completely open to negotiation. You can give as much or as little as the narrator agrees to as part of a royalty share plus, but a lot of what we find is deals that end up making sure that the narrator at least covers themselves and their production costs, and that way any royalties are actual earnings.
Gotcha.
And so, sorry, I was just going to say, if you can, my advice would be if you can afford it, and if you believe in your book and you think it's going to sell even better than hotcakes, pony up some of that money. Do a pay for production, because I don't think you want to have the next hottest selling audiobook and you're splitting half the royalties with somebody else. Now, if you can't afford a pay for production narrator, if you're not quite sure if this book is going to be lighting the world on fire and sell millions and millions, or if for some other reason royalty share just feels right to you in that moment for that book, by all means do it. You're going to find great narrators. You're going to find great narrators with pay for production. And then, you won't end up having to split any of the money. So if you can afford it, I think that's a great way to go.
Oh, absolutely.
Are you a math guy, Don?
To own them from the get-go. Plus, we don't know down the road, too, what the advertising costs may end up being. and how that can change over the years. 7 years ago, there wouldn't have been half the platforms there are for advertising downloads.
Yep.
Are you a math guy, Don?
A little bit.
I did the math on the royalty share versus pay per hour, and the break-even point is about 1.1 sale per day. So if you sell more than 1.1 audiobooks per day, then the narrator is making more money than he would if you paid him straight up. If you make less than that, he's making less. So if you're planning to sell only one audiobook a day, royalty share is the way to go. That's planning for failure.
If I'm
sorry,
if I'm
I shouldn't
planning
have
to
said
sell
that.
one audiobook a day, I'm going home.
It's a very low break-even point.
Thanks, Wayne. Thank you for that.
Well, and I have noticed it's tricky. It's very similar as with Amazon and Kindle. The more books you have in a series, the more it's going to boost all of the sales in general. So when you start out, it might kind of be like, oh no, what have I done? But once you start putting the other ones on it, it's going to feed itself pretty well.
We started in April of 2015, and it was
until I had enough books that were performing behind it to follow up.
We started in April of 2015 with the first book, and I think we got them all done by August or September, the first 7. But it was 2016 before the whole investment was in the black. The first book earned out in about 6 months, the second one in about 5 months. But by the time we got to the 8th book and we were recording live books, the payback was within a couple of weeks, 3 weeks to a month max.
Wow.
Yeah, the opening, my latest one was on pre-order for 6 days, and it had over 200 sales on day one.
You can do pre-orders of audiobooks.
Yeah. We don't have it officially built in through the site, but for you or anybody in your audience that's listening, you can write into our support team. It's just support@acx.com. We need minimum 2 weeks notice. That's on the website, Don. You don't have to write it down. We need minimum 2 weeks notice just to, before. So what you should do is when you know that you're, let's say 3 weeks out from your audiobook being delivered and finalized and ready to go to ACX, drop us an email and just say, hey, this is the book. It's going to be delivered in X amount of time. I'd really like to set up. You should ask for a pre-order, but you also need to ask for B, a strict on sale date. And those are two separate things. A strict on sale date is just, I want it to go live on this day. And here's a tip from the big publishers. New audiobooks generally come out on Tuesday. Do with that what you want. Maybe you want to ride the new audiobook wave and publish on Tuesday. Maybe you want to try to avoid Tuesday and see if you'll catch people when there's not something being promoted or whatever. Up to you. So just, ask for a strict on sale date and ask for a pre-order period. And what that does, just like with regular book pre-orders, is if you get some good head of steam during a pre-order, all those sales will count on the first day, and then it might help you get onto like top genre lists or things like that.
And this is important for our listeners. Unlike KDP, Audible sales in pre-order count on the first day. They don't count over time. They will land in a nice, big, juicy pile right on that first day, and it's fantastic. So
rank.
Do it if you can. But Scott, let me ask you. You said the 2 weeks and the 3 weeks, but don't you? I believe you have to have all of your finalized files up. They have to be uploaded, so that.
That may be possible. You might know more about the specific process than me, so you got me twice.
Well, I think they want to know that it's done and available before they do.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. I can definitely double check that and confirm, but I do know that we want at least the date that you pick needs to be at least 2 weeks out. You can't say book's done on Tuesday. I want a pre-order to go up tomorrow. Yeah.
Okay, now I know we're running close on time. The big question: how do you price them?
That's actually a very little question. Audible controls pricing for Audible products. It's generally based on length. Unlike something like a Kindle Direct Publishing, we don't allow for pricing control from the authors and the rights holders. Audible is overall more of a closed ecosystem that's highly curated for listeners. So where you're going to see on Amazon, and I don't know if any of you authors have like gotten into this, but you know, between like the Amazon ads and some of the bidding, sometimes you have to like buy an ad to make sure that your book is the first book seen for like your name in the search results. Audible doesn't have any ads within their search results. Audible controls pricing. Audible controls all their sale pricing. And it's generally based on length. However, when we talk about length, we talk about things being creditworthy, because Audible subscription is built on a credit model, as opposed to like a Netflix where it's an all-you-can-listen or I guess all-you-can-watch type thing. Audible members pay a certain amount per month based on their subscription plan, and it gives them a certain amount of credits per month. Generally, one audiobook is 1 credit. And so, of course, there is a la carte purchases where somebody just decides to buy an audiobook out of the blue. There are sale purchases where an Audible listener has access to sales because they're a member. But generally, it's going to cost 1 credit, which means that, you know, a 4-hour audiobook might not be credit worthy. A listener might wait for that to go on sale or be offered in some kind of promotion before picking it up. But if you've got like a nice 9, 10, 12-hour audiobook, that's going to be credit worthy, and listeners are going to want to spend one of their monthly credits on that.
Who determines the sale and who determines the sale price then on promo?
Audible determines sale pricing. We have a team at Audible so we have 2 teams that generally get involved with the promotion of Audible books. One is our editorial team, and they do a lot of, we're your super cool, knowledgeable friend who wants to tell you about the next great audiobook, right? So it's not necessarily about sale pricing. It's really just about highlighting that book and bringing their own personal experience to it. There's another team that does the merchandising at Audible, figuring out which books go on the homepage, which books go on genre landing pages, XYZ. And they're also the team that includes books in sales, determines the theme of the sale, and determines the pricing and timing of that sale. You can absolutely write into support@acx.com once you've got books up and ask if there are any opportunities coming up that are appropriate for your book. But I will be honest, ACX doesn't have the final say on what books do and don't get into sales and for how long and at what time. We certainly make suggestions, and we can certainly advocate for great books coming from ACX to be highlighted to listeners. But I just want to be honest and say that requesting it isn't a guarantee.
Gotcha.
Okay, any final points you want to touch on, Scott?
Final points. You know, we covered a lot of varying things. You know, I'm not sure we touched on every aspect of the production, but I think that's okay. A lot of that information is available elsewhere. One of the stuff that I find authors tell me is the most interesting is just that marketing information, those marketing tips. And again, like just at the highest level, since we don't have a ton of time, I always go back to think of, involve your audience in the process early. Like I said, tell them as soon as you decide to make an audiobook, give them frequent updates on social media or in your newsletter every time you hit a milestone in the audiobook production. So when you cast your narrator, shout it from the rooftops. Let people know how excited you are about it. If you've got a blog and your narrator's amenable to it, interview that narrator for your blog and get them talking about why they're so excited to produce your book for you. If your narrator is willing, ask them to produce some behind-the-scenes content. Maybe they can take their phone out and sort of capture themselves while they're narrating a really interesting scene. Maybe they make a blooper and you get like a nice blooper reel where they stumble over a line and it's really funny.
Those are some good ideas.
You really are.
I'm full of good ideas, man.
You're creating a lot of extra work for me right now.
Here's what I was going to say is that, you know, it's one thing to ask for occasional help from your narrator promoting the books, right? Especially if you're in a royalty share, because the narrator is then invested in the sale of the book as well. If you're on a pay for production, Nick can tell me that I'm wrong. I think it's reasonable to ask in advance, hey, would you mind doing one or two small things to help me promote? Here's what they are. If you get into the habit of, if you really want some heavy promotional lift from that narrator, lots of behind the scenes content, multiple blog interviews, Twitter chat, podcast, that's something that you could consider including in their per finished hour rate under marketing services and, you know, doing it that way. I would be surprised to find a narrator who's going to say no to more money.
I don't want us to miss out on promo codes, the importance of using those early on to make sure you get traction with reviews, and bounty links, which during the Tropical Authors newsletter, I forgot to tell everybody to send me their bounty links. Tell me about those two things.
Yeah. We're going to go over an hour. I just want to tell our viewers we are going to go over an hour. So don't let the time clock worry you. We're going to continue until we're done.
So yeah, okay. So promo codes. Promo codes on ACX are essentially giveaway codes. You could think of them as, you know, like free copies of your book, however you want to do it. It's just an alphanumeric code that you will get when you produce your book. They're available for books with exclusive distribution. They're kind of a benefit of going exclusive with Audible. And they allow you to do giveaways. They allow you to, you can send them to audiobook reviewers if you'd like to get somebody a free copy so they can review your audiobook on their blog. You can even exchange it for an honest review of your book on Audible. And I say that very carefully because you can't condition any specific kind. You can't say, I'll give you this promo code if you give me a good review. Big no-no. You can say, give me an honest review, and hopefully you've published an awesome audiobook that people only have nice things to say about, right? So that's generally what promo codes are for. You'll get a small amount, I think 25 for the US and 25 for the UK when you first publish your book. And then once a certain number have been redeemed, in addition to a few legitimate paid purchases, you'll unlock like 25 more codes for the US and 25 more for the UK. Ways to use those codes, you know, again, I wouldn't just give them out willy-nilly. That's kind of like standing on the street corner and handing out flyers and hoping that, you know, the person you gave the flyer to doesn't just throw it out on the next street corner. Try to be targeted with your promo codes. If you have newsletters, if you have Facebook groups, if you have places where your fans gather, you know, maybe reward really loyal fans by giving them a free copy of the book. If you happen to know somebody who, like I said, is an audiobook blogger or reviewer or influencer, if that's somebody you know, give them a book and ask for their word of mouth, ask for their recommendations about it. Give it to a reader who's never listened to an audiobook before. Maybe you convert them into a listener. Now they're buying 2 products of yours. I had one more thing I was going to say, and this just completely went out of my head.
Contests.
You could definitely do
for contests.
Contests can get a little tricky. Just make sure that you're abiding by all your local laws as well as the rules of the platform that you're on. So like Facebook has certain rules about giveaways and X, Y, and Z. So just don't run afoul of the law or Facebook. And I was going to say there's an author who told me something really interesting, which is that some authors on, you know, as soon as their book releases want to go and give out promo codes so that they can get reviews, they can get word of mouth, X, Y, and Z. Totally a great way to do it. An author named Jessica Hawkins actually told me that she refuses to give out promo codes in the first week or two that her audiobook comes out, because she wants people to buy it. She doesn't want people to think of it as devalued because it's available for free and I can chase around these promo codes. She wants it to be, now don't get me wrong, she's got a fan base. She's got people who she knows are going to buy her audiobook when it comes out. So her tactic is, you know, I'm not going to give away these free copies right away. I want to encourage people to pay money for it. So that's an interesting idea you might want to consider as well. That's promo codes. Any questions on that before I jump to bounties?
No.
Yeah. Let's move to bounties.
All right. So the ACX Bounty Referral Program, it's a referral program. That's why we call it that. Just like I think Uber, right? If you've ever used Uber, they have in their app like refer a friend, and when they take their first ride, you'll get $50 or something. Very similar idea. Every ACX creator, whether it's author, narrator, producer, publisher, for every individual book, we give you a unique link that links people back to Audible to purchase your book, and it captures the fact that it's your link, that you drove that customer to Audible, and if they're a new customer, if they're not already an Audible listener, and they buy your book through your link, and then they stay an Audible member for at least 61 days, you will get a bounty payment. That bounty payment is up to $75 per new listener captured. It's $75 most of the time. If you do a royalty share, so in a royalty share production, let's say the author is the one whose bounty link triggers the new member. The author gets $50, the narrator gets 25, and vice versa. So on a royalty share, if it's the narrator gets 25, the narrator gets 50, the rights holder gets 25. All other instances, it's just whoever's link it is, you get the money. I'll be honest, not every, it's just sort of it's one of those things where it's really easy to put it out there. Whenever you link your book, just use this link instead of a regular link. And you might catch new listeners. It's definitely not the kind of thing where you use it and all of a sudden you turn around tomorrow and you've got an extra couple of $1,000 in a couple of days. But it's just so easy to set it and forget it, and then you kind of do forget about it. And then every so often you've got new listeners coming into Audible, you earn a bounty. Or if you want to try to really juice it yourself, you use your bounty link and you try to target your fans that you know are not audiobook listeners, that are not Audible members. Go sign up for Audible. You'll love the magic of audio. I think you'll love it so much, blah, 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 blah. You'll stay a member. And you know what? Depending on your relationship with your fans, you could be honest with them. You could say, hey, I think you'll love this. You should go check it out. And you know what? You'll be supporting me if you use this link to go buy it, because I'll get a little extra kicker if you become an Audible member. Up to you whether that's the way you want to talk to your audience, but if that feels right to you, then by all means.
What's the payment lag on that? Obviously, it's got to be beyond 60 days if they have to stay an audiobook member for 60 days.
I'm sorry, I missed the first part of the question.
Payment lag.
Yeah, what's the payment lag? How long does it take to get that bounty? Obviously, it's got to be beyond 60 days. Right.
So that's a good way for me to tell you that ACX pays monthly. We make monthly payments for any of your audiobook royalties. And it would appear in your next royalty statement after that listener hits the 61st day. So there's no big delay in the payment or anything. At most, I guess it would be, 91 days.
30 days.
Whatever it should be, or something like that.
89, 90 days, yeah.
All the, on my website, all of my Audible links are bounty links. So if somebody's just cruising my website and they say, oh, I might like to try Audible, boom, I get the bounty in 61 days.
Cool.
Okay, anything else? Let me jump over here to YouTube and see if there's any questions.
And while
I know there was one earlier.
Yeah.
Britt Nick asked, who's that clean-shaven guy impersonating Wayne? If anybody doesn't know, I shave my beard off every time I release a book. So obviously this beard is now 1 week old.
Well, congratulations, because that means you released a book.
Yes.
That's the chapter 1 fuzz from the next one.
But so the goatee always stays, because you're not clean shaven. You're mostly clean shaven, Wayne, but the goatee stays no matter what?
Yeah, the goatee always stays. It's Yvonne Edwards is asking, will you be at NINC in St. Pete? Yes, I'll be there. I don't know if anybody from Audible is coming. Y'all are presenting virtually, right?
I'm sorry, your crowd. What's happening in St. Pete? Is that
NINC?
The
Novelist
NINC conference, Novelist Inc.
Gotcha. So I'm honestly not sure. I know that we've scaled back our slate of conferences this year. having to do with COVID and with staffing and people just obviously their lives being quite different. I don't know. I don't think we are doing a virtual attendance at NINC this year, but we're hopeful that next year it'll be back in person. And we really just, being in a business that's very virtual, even during non-COVID times, authors over here, narrators over there in their home studio, I'm in Newark at Audible. We love going to events, and I love going to events to get to hang out with narrators and authors and meet people and tell them about how great audiobooks are. So I'm really hopeful that sometime soon we'll have some like real world events again, and I can say hi and buy you a drink or something.
Yeah, we'd love to have you at NINC. This year is going to be kind of weird. A lot of the presentations are going to be virtual. There's a few where it will be live, but Audible's always had some representation there, and we look forward to seeing them again.
I should say I only speak for ACX, and I will confirm that I don't speak for all of Audible. So I don't believe that ACX is presenting, but I do not know about Audible.
Okay,
so we're up to
question.
That's three things I didn't have a definite answer for.
The question that we were kind of hoping wouldn't come up has come up. So we're going to go ahead and I'm going to let you address it, Scott. Is Nicholas Harvey asks, where'd it go? Oh, is ACX getting caught up on their approval review times? We had a big discussion about that, and with the COVID situation and everything, a lot of people were working at home, and ACX said basically fallen a little bit behind.
Yeah, so to answer the question, the answer is yes. We're not prepared yet to share like a specific exact update on our updated timelines, but essentially what happened is that as Wayne motioned to, we received an unprecedented number of audiobook project submissions this year. A couple different reasons. The site continues to grow and be successful. COVID did have a lot of people working from home and looking for businesses that could be run from home and additional revenue streams. And I'll be honest with you, there were some people with less than stellar intentions who sort of alighted on ACX and decided to try to see how smart they were and what they could get out of it. So a couple of different things sort of combined to slow down our processing times. And I do really apologize for that. There's nothing worse than completing your project. You're so excited, you're ready for it to be done, and then it takes longer than you expect. That's got to be the worst feeling, and I sympathize with that, and I want to see those books live soon. I do also promise we've been doing everything that we can. We've been working extremely hard, adding resources, revising processes, coming up with ways to better deal with the situation and get back to where we want to be, which is really speedy time from audiobook submission to retail. We've worked our way through a good deal of some of those titles that were slowing things down. And overall, our processing queues are in a much better state than they had been earlier this year. Like I said, I'm not yet prepared to share a specific number, but things are moving much more quickly and much more smoothly. And we look forward to continuing to improve on that as we go forward.
And I like the new audio analyzer you have. I imagine that helps a bit. It's a new sort of software gatekeeper, which lets a producer know right away, oh, nope, your noise floor is not going to make it through. So it kind of eliminates a few types of kickback that might occur. You're just able to fix it up front yourself.
I should send Nick a portion of my paycheck. Nick's doing my job for me. You're absolutely right, Nick. That's one of the new enhancements that we've released this year that does help bring those processing times down. Essentially what Nick is mentioning is that there's now two different places on the website of ACX where you can upload your audio and get a readout as to whether it's going to meet our audio submission requirements or not, which A, makes your life easier because you can fix any errors before you submit it. And B, like Nick mentioned, it does help our quality assurance team who reviews the books because it helps ensure that more productions that meet spec are landing on their shores and therefore they're spending less time explaining to people like why the book didn't get through, why it didn't meet spec, what needs to be done to fix it, X, Y, and Z.
Quick question about that. The one thing we didn't talk about, and I don't want to run too long, I just mentioned there is a step called the first 15. When you are hiring a narrator, they have to send you the first 15 minutes of the book or a chapter, or whatever you agree on. And it's a way of sort of testing to make sure they're really going to do what you want to do performance-wise, but it also lets you hear their studio. Now, here's the question for you, Scott. If a producer's audio fails in the first 15, is the rights holder informed of that, or only the producer who's uploaded it sees that?
That's another really good question.
I don't know the answer. I'm curious.
I've never seen anything.
You
I'm
have.
gonna have to take that one back and check it. I think that I do believe it's just the producer that sees it, but again, want to be super sure. But yeah, so as far as so it's funny, we used to call it the first 15, and we sort of changed the name to the 15-minute checkpoint because just like with the audition, it shouldn't necessarily be the first 15 minutes of the book, because the first 15 minutes of the book might not be representative of what the whole book entails. So it can be any 15 minutes from the book. It could be a 7-minute scene from here and an 8-minute scene from there, whatever. But yeah, we do have that built in. Our audio analysis does take place at the point of uploading files in production, 15-minute checkpoint and the final audio. And also, we've recently released the same technology in a different format called Audio Lab, and that allows any producer before they get into a production to upload that audio and ensure it meets spec. So
You did the other day, yeah.
if you're new and you're just starting out, or even if you're a veteran like Nick, you can double check your audio to make sure you've got it right.
We veterans sometimes don't keep up with the times. So the first time you put that thing up, my audio failed. I'm like, what? So I had to track down what it was that was slightly off.
Well, I won't tell anyone.
All right.
So,
Well, we're about 16 minutes overtime,
Oh my.
and the first overtime period. We're going to have to shut it down, though, because my wife's cooking dinner, and it's going to be on the table in about 13 minutes, and I need to get cleaned up. So I want to thank you, Scott, for being here with us, and Don, thank you for being here with us. And I'd also like to thank our sponsors, tropicalauthors.com, Cinematic Book Trailers, Pirate Radio, and Down Island Press. And that's it. Everybody have a great day, and take care of yourself, and take care of others.
And
Thanks
go
so
check
much.
out Don's Coastal Adventures series.
yeah, waterfront
Right.
escapism.
There you go. Good night, everybody.
All right.
Good night.
Thanks,